Well, welcome. It is Facebook Live Thursday, and today is a topic that I want to talk to you about that has actually been coming back ever since I've done the self-esteem that I've been talking about, the self-esteem course I've been putting together. I've had ladies coming and talking to me about different struggles they're having, and one of the reasons I asked, I said, well, why haven't you purchased this? And more than one person has expressed that the reason they cannot purchase it is control. And I thought, interesting. So I reached out to a couple of these individuals, and they said that they're controlled by their circumstances. Their husband is very controlling. Their situation is controlling. They're not allowed to spend money. They're not allowed to, do anything else like that is out of their control. They have to get their husband's permission. Well, this goes for if you are being controlled as a husband or if you're being controlled as a wife. This is the same principle that applies. And it's dealing with this issue of control. Now, I've talked to some of these individuals and told them that I was going to be presenting on this, so I please hope you remembered that, and this is not as a shock to you. One of the biggest issues when it comes to control is the person who is controlling. As a child, they felt out of control. They didn't have the self-confidence themselves. That's what it's crazy. They didn't feel like they had control of their life. So they were controlled, and so now they feel like they must control. And when a marriage comes together, you have two people uniting here. And sometimes you unite in the same purpose, and you're going in the same direction towards the same goals. Other times, you go against each other and you have this friction. It's almost like a collision course. And the more I'm doing this, unfortunately, it's up here. It's like people are just coming and colliding instead of learning how to unify and go in the right direction. That's what I want to focus today. Now, one thing you have to realize is you can only control you. You can't control your partner, any relationship for that matter that's a negative relationship in any way. And that's just saying just because it's negative in one area isn't positive in another area. But we still want to ideally get to this point. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how you can start to get to this point. Now, this exercise is going to seem kind of silly. It's going to seem like, how is that going to work? Please set aside any thoughts, disbelief. Just set it aside and try it. It's a simple exercise that, repeated over and over and over again, you will be amazed at how powerful it is in changing a situation. And all it is, it's a very simple one. You're going to get you a piece of paper. A regular piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, lined, unlined, doesn't matter. And you're going to take and you're going to write a letter to the person that is controlling you. Don't worry, you're not going to be giving this to that individual. You are just writing this to get everything out and to express it. So you write the letter, dear. And for this, all sakes and purpose, I'm just going to make up a name, and the name is going to be Fallujah, okay? Because hopefully there's nobody here that's named Fallujah. And Fallujah, he's a very controlling man. He doesn't allow his wife to spend money. He doesn't allow her to do anything unless he gives approval. She can't go visit family unless she gives approval. She can't go do anything unless he's approval. Again, remember, this is universal, whether you're the husband or wife being controlled. Just dear controlling person, whoever that controlling person is. And you're going to write this letter, and you're going to just write and write and write. And you want to write all your frustrations. You want to write all your anger, all your resentment, all your disapproval. I mean, just get all of that yuck that is in you, get it out and on this paper. Get it out and on this paper immediately. And as you get it out on this paper, then you're going to go into a room by yourself. So after you've completed it, so you've completed your letter now. It's done. And now you're going to go into a room by yourself with this letter. Now, I know this, again, just please try it. Go into a room by yourself. Make sure nobody can hear you. If you have the ability to lock that room and make sure that nobody can hear you, lock it. Or if you don't, then go out into nature and go yell at a tree. That's where we're going. We are taking this and we're getting at all of that that's inside of us, all that yuck, and we're bringing it up. We're presenting it here so that we can see it all. We can see all the frustration that it's causing. And then we're going to dispel it now. And how we're going to get rid of it or dispel of it and let it go is you're going to go into a room. Again, a room or out in nature where you are by yourself. Nobody can hear you. And you're going to invite this controlling person. Now, again, this is not in person. We are not having you confront this controlling person one-on-one. We are going to connect on a higher level. We are going to connect on their higher self. And what you do is you invite that person. You say, Fallujah, please come down. I need to talk with you. And you imagine their higher self coming and sitting right here next to you. And you're going to look at them. And imagine you're right there. You are looking at them. You are talking to them. Again, this is not in a physical sense. You are not physically addressing them and coming up to them and say, I need to talk to you. No, we're not doing that. We need to realize, I want you to realize, this is connecting on a higher level. This is a much higher intuitive self, okay? So you're going to invite that person in. And you say, please come here. And invite them to sit down or stand, whatever you're doing. And then you are going to read this letter to them. Read it word for word, and then ad-lib anything else that comes to mind as you're reading it. So it could be we want to be very expressive, very emotional. If we're writing about anger and frustration and resentment, we want that feeling to come across as we're reading it. And again, we're reading it to their higher self. And you are reading it with all that anger, all that resentment, all that frustration. And you're like, you yell it. Just get it out of you. Just get it out of you. Whatever it takes, throw a temper tantrum, get it out of you. And then as you are doing this, as you're letting it all go, here's where magic starts to happen. For one, we're getting rid of it. We're breaking up the junk that's all inside of us. And the thing is it's there already, so might as well get it out of you. But one thing that I've noticed is somebody who's been stuck in this area so long, and they've got so much anger and resentment that they've learned how to hold on to it. And they don't want to let it go. It's almost like a safety blanket because they know that they have this extra anger, resentment that they can unleash on them if ever the time arises. They're saving it as a backpack that they can carry around and let them have it when the time's right. We've got to get rid of that. We've got to get rid of it. And so you're going to let it all out. You yell, you just get all this emotion and this yuck out of you. Then, after that, now this is the hard part for you. And I realize it's hard. But if you do it, man, you need to ask them to forgive you. Now, I'm not asking them to forgive you for the way they are treating you. I'm not saying you are forgiving them for the way you're treating them. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you asking them to forgive you for the negative feelings that you have towards them, for the negative feelings that have been created because of the circumstances and how you've not let them go. That's what you're asking forgiveness for. So you ask them, say, Fallujah, will you please forgive me for having these negative feelings towards you? You imagine them saying yes. Because they do. On our higher self, when they're thinking up here much higher than their normal earthly body realm, there's something more. There's something a lot more. And when we start talking in that level, wow, we can communicate in a way that is phenomenal. So you ask them to forgive you for having these negative feelings. Then you ask your higher power to forgive you. Now, I believe in a loving Heavenly Father who wants, cares, and supports us as much as we possibly can. But whoever your higher power is, you ask him, her, it to forgive you for having these negative feelings. And you say, dear Heavenly Father, I've had these negative feelings towards Fallujah for such a long time. Please forgive me. And then you imagine him saying yes. Because he does. He's at a much higher level. He understands. Then one of the hardest things is you ask yourself to forgive you. And you say self, but you obviously address your name. In my case, it's Tony. Tony, will you forgive you for having these negative feelings towards Fallujah? Then I have to be honest with myself and say yes or no. And if I say no, then I've got more work to do. I've got to get to the point where I can forgive them. And I can get to the point where I can forgive myself. And then once I get to that point, then I say, yes, I will forgive me. Then you dismiss the person. You say, okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And you dismiss the person. You let them go. Now, we've gone through this process. You've brought all this junk that's in you. You've got it out. You put it out on paper, and then you've gone out and yelled it. And now the magic starts to happen. Is you start to create your story. Now you're going to create a story around the relationship and the way you want it to be. And it literally is something like, wow, we connect on a higher level than I ever thought possible. He loves and cares and supports me. He allows me the freedom that I've always wanted. We're engaged. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight. Please do not misinterpret what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is once you have your story, then you read it. And you reread it. And you keep reading it. And you read it out loud. Not to him, but again, just to yourself and in a private area. And you read it again and again and again. What happens, and I don't understand how it happens, but what starts to happen is because we are communicating on such a higher level, we're kind of getting the back door into his mind. And when you can get that back door into his mind, you can start influencing on a higher level. Let me just give you an example of a situation that I've seen that happen like this. One of the individuals that I've been working with, her husband was very controlling. He would never do anything. He would never help out with dishes. He would never allow her to go see her family. He'd never do stuff like this. Well, she did this over and over again for several months. It was about the third month, if I remember correctly. She calls me up and she's just ecstatic. I'm like, are you okay? Everything all right? She said, yes, yes. I mean, she's just kind of crying. I'm like, serious, yo, are you okay? She says, yes. She said, remember that exercise that you told me about that I thought was so ridiculous? I said, well, I've taught you a lot of things. Which one are you talking about? Oh, the one that I have to write the letter to the person and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah. She says, it actually works. She said, I thought you were loony when you were telling me this. I thought you were just off your rocker, but I thought, I have nowhere else to go. I have nothing else to do. I've got to try this. And so she implemented this. And she said, last night, my husband walked in and he says, I don't know why, but I just think you ought to go see your family. And she said, I looked at him. I'm like, are you sure? He said, yeah, I don't know why. So she went and saw her family, had a fantastic time just by herself, came back, and on top of that, he had done the dishes. Now, to you may be not, your relationship may be like, well, what's the big deal about that? To her, this was huge. This man would come home from work, expect dinner on the table, and then he would sit down and play video games the rest of the night. This was his life. Even with the children, this is what their life was. Well, through doing this exercise over and over and over again, getting rid of all this yuck and having these conversations, these private conversations on a higher level, she started to change him. Not her specifically changing him, but through the circumstances. And he was now functioning on a much higher level too and responding at a much higher level. Their marriage has improved, and it has improved quite a bit. He helps her around the house a lot more. He actually allows her to go to her family more frequently. And the thing is he never realized how controlling he really was. And he still doesn't. But because she's communicating at a much higher level, she's communicating on a spiritual level, she is changing their relationship, and it is improving tremendously. Now, there's some of you right now, and you right now are just thinking, how's that going to work? Seriously, Tony, how is that going to work? You're not going to know if it's going to work or not unless you try. This is a powerful, powerful exercise. And if you do it, you will see the results. This is so powerful that you can influence the lives of people from great distances. Here's another example. An individual who she hadn't talked to her siblings in such a long time. Every time they got together, they just fought. And they would fight and fight and fight and fight. It was just like, I'm not coming over anymore. You know, all this. Well, this one lady, she wanted to mend this relationship so bad. But every time she would go to try it, the other person would just attack them. She's like, Tony, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do anything anymore. And I said, let's do this exercise. Walked her through it just like I did right here, right now. And it was probably about a month ago, she calls me up and she says, you'll never believe it. I said, what? I said, my sister just called me and wants to go out to lunch. I said, that's awesome. She said, no, you don't understand. This is the woman that we would always fight. I'm scared. I'm nervous. What is she wanting? And I turned to her and I said, what are you wanting? What's your story? She says, well, I want to love. I want to connect. I want to be sisters again. I said, okay. So Plan that story. Go with that story. That the purpose you're there is to love and connect. And anything contrary, you're just going to let her know you love her and you're just going to walk out. But she went to this lunch and had a fantastic time. She come back and she said, Tony, we didn't fight. We didn't fight at all. She didn't blame, I didn't blame her. We didn't compare children. We just sat and visited. And then I asked her, I said, what was your story? And she said, that was exactly what my story was. Is that there was going to be no comparison. We were just going to sit down and we were going to talk together. And that's what's happened. This exercise will work. I know it will. Please start implementing it into your life with any of those situations that are really struggling. And it will change the relationship for better. Will it happen overnight? No. Could it? Absolutely. I've got other stories I could tell you, but this is getting a little longer than I planned. But you are amazing. Don't allow any of this negative speak out here to tell you any different. That's what we are all about, is being amazing, realizing how amazing we are. And you are amazing. You have so many talents, so many skills, so many gifts that you can share and help others. Out of all the sperm that came, there's only one that made you, and there's no other one that is alike. You are that unique and that amazing that all the DNA has formed only one you. And that's how special you are. Please realize it. You are so phenomenally amazing. Believe it and have a wonderful, fantastic day.